Welcome back to the sweatshop. In today's video, we're going to be working on this 2014 Subaru Crosstrek. What we're doing in today's video is we're showing you how this happened, why this contributed to this issue, and how you are not going to have this issue by your own doing. That being said, we are in a bit of a jam here, but essentially these brakes here aren't too old, so we're going to try and get some more life out of them. In this video, I will not be replacing any of these components. We are going to be machining a rotor, which I haven't done in a very long time, and if my friend is comfortable and has enough space, we'll show you what that process looks like on camera. Now, this vehicle came in for a bad bearing, and I'll tell you right now, it potentially does have one, but it's not super loud, so I'm going to try fixing the braking issue first and see if that takes care of the brunt of our noise. That way the customer can get some more life out of his bearing and doesn't have to replace it right away. That being said, eventually there will be a video for a bearing in the pipeline. Of course, we can't do it today because I don't have a heat shield to replace, and surprisingly enough, the heat shield on this thing is rotted to complete crap, and it's only got 136,000 on it, which is kind of surprising and a letdown there, Subaru. Seeing more of your newer cars running away quicker than the older ones did. Anyhow, that is what we're doing in today's video. I'm pretty sure I didn't mention everything that I'm going to show you, so stick around. I am tired, and well, half the stuff that's going on in my head isn't making sense as it comes out of my mouth. So yeah, stick around and you'll learn some stuff. Of course, before we get any further into the video, do me a big favor, hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you never miss one of my new videos. Now, that's enough blah blah blah. Let me show you exactly what is happening. Okay, so basically, the vehicle came in because the customer has a bit of a noise, and it was diagnosed by another mechanic that it had a bad wheel bearing, and that is a potential issue. But we also have the caliper that is seizing up, or the braking components that we're not releasing completely. And the most common culprit for that sort of situation on a Subaru is a bad caliper, unless you have a caliper bracket like we have that's never been maintained properly. Of course, that's on my table, and I'll show you exactly what I mean later on. As for this portion here, what we're looking at is our hub. Of course, I needed to get the braking system completely apart in order to diagnose whether this guy's making any noise, because, well, two things: we couldn't get this side to spin freely with the brakes constantly engaging. On top of that, with the brakes having so much rot on the rotor, we would also potentially get a false amount of noise coming from it had that back pad been touching the rotor. With that mouthful out of the way, I will say that whenever you have a properly maintained caliper bracket, the most common problem for a Subaru that has a braking system that will not fully disengage tends to be a caliper that is bad. What goes bad generally is these guys here. The pistons will have these rubber boots either nicked or damaged, and over time rust will build up in the hole and the piston will not move. Now, if your rubbers are good, generally with higher mileage and a lack of maintenance to the caliper through this little hole here, that's right, bleeding your brakes is important, moisture will build up because brake fluid is a hygroscopic fluid, and essentially what that means is it will attract moisture and form condensation. Condensation is the enemy of any system that is lubricated by oil. How you simply check whether your caliper is bad or not is you get a caliper retraction tool, or you can get a vice grip. Generally with these guys, to be honest, it's just easier with a vice grip, and that's exactly what I use. Get a vice grip like this. This is I think it's a 10-inch C-clamp or whatnot. All you're going to do simply is gently push the piston back. With really no force, this guy is moving, so we know that one's good. You're generally going to have just one piston that's bad, if any. Same thing. So we know our caliper itself is not a problem, which means that our caliper bracket is a problem. And the caliper bracket generally becomes a problem when it isn't maintained properly. A good sign of a lack of maintenance beside your caliper bracket is this surface here. Your hub surface, as you can see on this particular car, is it's never had really any love or attention. It's had some in the past. You can see there is a bit of anti-seize, and where the anti-seize is, there is no rust. So this is a perfect example of why why it is you spread some anti-seize across the hub. Makes your life easier in the long term. For mechanics, unfortunately, a lot of guys cost money, so they don't want to do it. It also is time, which is money. So, you know, small things like that will really make a huge difference, especially if you're a technician and working on the car consistently. It makes a big difference in your turnaround time if you're having your customer back for repeat services on all sorts of things. So do yourself a favor and make your life considerably easier. Another thing that is a pain in the ass with the Subarus, these holes tend to bind up with all sorts of rust. So, well, we'll be going through that later on in the video. I'll show you how to get this guy rust free. I might leave this depending on how much time I have, because I think this thing's going to get replaced, I mean. And yeah, we'll go from there. Anytime you are going to do a bearing though, best advice that you take a look at this guy here. You can see, putting really no pressure, it is severed from here, completely rotted. They are relatively cheap at the dealership. Locally, they're like $42 or something like that. That's Canadian, so in the States, it's probably going to be like 10 bucks. Anyhow, get these guys and replace them. Don't try reusing it, because it's going to keep all the water that you splash through in your all-wheel drive Subaru off of your rotor, which greatly increases its longevity. So, why is it that this thing looks as ugly as it does? Well, as you can see, the problem isn't on both sides, it's just on the one. What causes this? It's a lack of maintenance on this. You can see here, this thing is bone dry. There is no grease in this area. And what generally happens with caliper brackets, especially in North America or anywhere there's a rust belt, everything rots, which is a pain in the ass. This thing is seized in place because of the pressure from the rust that develops on the caliper bracket. Now, if you've watched any of my brake videos in the past, you will know exactly what the process is that I do. It's something that really nobody does because, well, again, same thing. Cost effectiveness, time, and money. It just does not make you any money to save the customer money. It also doesn't make you any money when you're spending all kinds of money on anti-seize and rust primer and stuff like that. It does lead to you questioning why you joined the automotive world, but you know, that's a discussion for another day. And if you'd like to hear me talk about that or cry about it, you can leave a comment, and that may be a video that I make at some point. Maybe I should do like a live session or something. Anyhow, these guys here should be easy to move. They are seized in place. I cannot get them apart. This guy here is really hard to twist, but still kind of functioning. This is the problem that has caused our whole situation. What we're going to do, because we can't get that heat shield delivered today, and we don't have much time because I'm rambling on and taking too long and got here late, as many of my customers will attest to, that happens often, unfortunately. Well, that's what happens as you get older and you have wife and kid and all that stuff to deal with. Regardless, it's not a good excuse. We are going to take this over to my neighbors. We're going to get this surface machine. We're going to hope for the best. Going to leave that guy alone. Well, maybe just get off the rust ridge there. And we're going to see whether that solves our bearing problem or noise. Hopefully it does. Like I say, I have diagnosed it and it does have a little bit of noise, but it's not an excessive amount, so I think this should be the brunt of our noise. Anyhow, that's enough rambling. Let's walk over to my neighbors now and hope for the best. as you can see, it takes quite a bit of work to get these things nice and machined nicely. Obviously, yes, you don't have to do the work and the machine does it. That's always nice, but it does take your time. You got to pay attention to it and whatnot. Anyhow, I don't usually recommend machining. It's usually replacement. But in light of our situation with time as well as the other side being completely fine, there is no point to just replacing the one with one slotted rotor. Unfortunately, I can't get my hands on a rotor that is exactly the same as this. So that's why we got that nice and machined. That being said, what we're gonna do now is do what should have been done originally, grind this guy up, make sure it's moving nice and freely. Hopefully we don't have any pulsation from the other side or any issues that tissues won't solve. Generally what arises from this sort of situation is because this is a nice non-glazed surface and because this caliper bracket's going to be moving freely when I'm done with it, we may experience a bit of grab from the one side. Obviously though, we were experiencing grab because one side's functioning and the other side isn't. So anytime you press the brakes, you'll get a bend to the right in this situation because, well, this guy is holding, but it's not able to generate really any clamping force, and the right side's the only side that's really clamping. Anyhow, that's enough rambling. Get yourself a small hammer, a file, and let's go ahead and work on this wonderful caliper bracket. See there, that's quite a bit of seize, I guess you would say. It's quite a bit of friction that's causing this thing to hold into place. Now you don't want to be overly aggressive, and with the Subarus you have this little spring so you can only really do the one side because, well, they've come up with this wonderful design. Not really too much of a big fan of it, but hey, let's get ourselves a flat screwdriver. And obviously there is a different side, so don't mix them up. Now, that there is our issue. You can see all that nice, wonderful rust. We need to get rid of all that. Now, save yourself some time and get yourself a file, and you're gonna file down the brunt of the rust. Obviously, you do not want to remove material, just the rust. Now, if this was done when the brakes were originally replaced, we would not be doing this today. Now, does this occur naturally? Yes, everything rusts in the rust belt, but a little bit of preventative maintenance like this goes a long way. Oh, rust. The fucking gift that never stops giving, or that anybody ever wants. Now, you get the idea. Basically, you got to do the same thing on both sides. Then what you're going to do is yank this guy out. Yeah, so that guy there is probably the original lubricant. Usually these don't get serviced, unfortunately. Usually these guys don't get serviced unless they are seized in place at the time of replacement, but they should be serviced. We got to grind that collar down. I'll give you an example of that afterwards. Whenever you take those guys out and they look like that, you want to flick this guy like this. When you flick it like this, all that rust and shit that builds up in that neck here will fall out. And then you squeeze it together, rotate it like that, and that gets some of the crap out of this orifice. Same thing for this side. This side here is pretty seized, so I'll show you how we usually do this. What I like to do, because we have this flat section here, is get a vice grip that opens out like that. You get a big fat jaw vice grip. You grab it like so, and we attempt to move it. Now, if this doesn't work, we'll be walking over to the vise. But before I do that, I'll be moving on to the rest of the caliper bracket. Well, that seemed pretty damn easy, to be honest. It looked way harder off camera, or before. There we go. Now you can see if you don't put any new lubricant, what happens over time. Don't be that asshole. Do the shit properly. Flick the rubber to ensure that you get all the crap out, and then yeah, we got some stale grease boogers inside the rubber, and just peel that shit off. Now you can remove it, but in light of time, we're not going to right now. I think I'm going to be doing brakes on this thing the next time around. So at that point, we'll take care of what other issues we have. You get the point. I'm going to go ahead now, take care of the brunt of this stuff, and we will see you back with more valuable information. Subscribe. Okay, now, nobody's favorite part of the job. You've got to go ahead now and grab tools like this and commence with clearing off as much rust as possible. Now, if you have a sandblaster, absolute best option. If you're going to sandblast it, I would make sure that these guys are still intact, or tape the hell out of this thing. Make sure no sand gets in there. If you don't, this is an example of exactly what you need to do. A wire wheel like this will be your best friend. Of course, ear, eye, and nose protection, very, very important. Now, essentially, that there is the goal, but you can see here we've got a bit of a chunker there. That's just some stuck-on rust. If you have the same sort of thing, what you're going to do is employ the use of your file again and get rid of as much of it as you can. Now, you can see there where I've got it off, it's shiny again with some nice rust embedded there. So that is basically the process. I'm going to go ahead now and complete all of it off camera, and then I will show you what it looks like. These guys also help, as well as this guy here, just for flattening out this surface nicely and quickly. Now, this is essentially what your bracket should look like. Don't be concerned with little deviations like that. Essentially, you want to get rid of all of the rust that you can. That looks rusty as shit on camera. Oh, it's my orange glove, that's why. Yeah, so there you go. I was like, dude, I just did all that work, and yeah. Finger placement if you're wearing orange gloves, very important, because it'll drive you insane. As you can see, this thing is in fairly decent shape now. I'm not too concerned with the middle here. It's mainly wherever your pad is going to rest. Now, we're not going to leave it like that. What you need to do is grab yourself some primer or paint, essentially anything that's going to help that rust stay the hell away from your vehicle. If you have one of these things, great. Dominion seal, I am still open for sponsorship. Make sure you shake the hell out of it and then go ahead and spray it. That is the result that you're looking for. Something that's nice and evenly coated that will not rot away. And if people out there think this is bullshit and it's over the top, well, I've been doing brakes now for, I don't know, 20 plus years. I've been using this shit for about 10, and I can tell you you generally last about 5 to 6 years before it rots to complete hell, which is a lot better than 2 years, which has been the length of time that these brakes have been in this car. So yeah, do the math yourself. Anyhow, we are now good to go with regards to our caliper bracket. Go ahead, grab your wire wheel and any other tools that you may need to get rid of the rust on this shit, and then depending on how bad it is, we'll give this a coat of paint as well. All right, I'm gonna go do that off camera because this video is gonna take forever, and then I will put things together. After and before, it took quite a bit of grinding to get it to this point. These guys were pretty rough shape. Of course, I have a bench grinder with a 6-inch wire wheel. That is the absolute best way to get rid of it unless you have a sandblaster. Make sure you give it a nice coat. Do not leave it unprotected. That's how you get unwanted surprises like a seized guide pin and, well, a lifetime of headaches if you don't pull it out and do what is needed, my friend. Do the work. Make sure you coat it, grease it, and then put it back in, because if you put it in dry, everyone ends up in pain. Grab yourself some quality brake grease and start greasing away. You want to put on a generous amount, but not so generous to the point where you can't force this thing in. Then you're going to go ahead, give it a nice little lathering around here. Make sure you force it in nice and gently, and then spin that guy around like so. And just lather it up nicely. On the top here, you can put, well, as much as you like, really. You just don't want to put so much that it doesn't go in nicely. Yeah, so our rubber is shit, but we can't replace it. Essentially, my rubber is expanded, so as I'm forcing this in, it's slipping on top here. That's because of, well, two things. Either the wrong lubricant or the rubber itself not having enough lubricant and then expanding because of the gases that heat up and whatnot. Because as your caliper gets really hot because it wasn't functioning properly, it can damage the integrity structurally of these components, which, yeah, pain in the ass. If you have this problem and you're willing to wait, go ahead and order a new one. If you're not, you can go ahead and force the goddamn thing in. Just a bit of a pain in the ass, and you will need to replace it the next time because essentially you're going to be cutting that piece of rubber. So yeah, I'm gonna go do this off camera, and I shall be back. Now, go ahead, grab these guys here, put them into place. Do not mix them up, because if you do, you'll end up with some headaches, and well, nobody has time for that. Force these clips into place. You're gonna take a nice flat screwdriver like so and just force it down. Make sure that it's not raised in any way towards the rotor, because that will end up hitting the rotor, and well, you won't be happy. There we go. Clips in place. Go ahead, grab your brake grease and give it a nice healthy dose. Again, same thing. You want to make sure that the dose is healthy enough that it is lubricated for the time that it will be on the car, but you also want to make sure it's not so much that it gets onto your pads. It's essentially what you want it to look like right there. Kind of tricky to get a nice shot, but hey, I tried my best for you guys there on the YouTube. See, with all the rust out of the way, now our bracket doesn't want to sit properly. Let's try get this guy sitting nicely. Whenever you have an issue like that, what you're going to do is modify these little tabs here. This is specific to the Subaru itself. It does work for other manufacturers as well, depending upon if the clips look like this, but if it doesn't, yeah, you're just going to have to kind of make it work, because, well, you don't want this stupid thing loose, because what happens when it's loose is it clicks around and makes all these stupid annoying noises. Customer's angry, you're angry, and well, nobody wants to deal with that shit. Now, of course, the big test. Grab these guys. Remember, there is an up and a down. These guys go with that there, and the other guys, well, they're just there to, well, these guys are there to annoy you because they're a pain in the ass, really. But anyhow, enough rambling about that. The big test now. Let's slide this guy in and see if we have done our job properly. And there you go. As you can see, I can easily move it. See? That is what you want. If your pad does not cooperate like that, whenever you're doing brakes, you have not done the job properly, and you will end up with exactly what I just corrected. So don't give yourself a headache in the future. Do the job properly. Yes, it takes longer, but you'll be happy for it. Okay, let's walk over to the car, do some more blah, 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 and get some shit done. Now, very importantly, we got that nice rotor that we've put on, but of course, it will wobble if you don't have a flat mating surface. This is something that often gets skipped because it's a pain in the ass, again, like everything else. What you got to do is grind off all that rust, make sure it's a nice, shiny surface. Ear, eye, and nose protection, very important. Perfect example. You can see that speck of rust there. Doesn't look like much, but it is raised. Maybe not enough to make a difference, but if it is, you don't want to find out the hard way. Yeah, and like I say, if you do this stuff on the regular, whenever you have your wheels off and whatnot, you don't necessarily need to spend 5 minutes grinding this shit off, because your anti-seize will be there protected. So hopefully you heed the warning and do what I'm showing you, and it'll save you in the long term. Now, of course, do the same to your disc if there is any rust or crap in there, and then we'll go ahead and put it back together. We're going to douse this in anti-seize. Okay, shall be back. Nice thick layer around the center, that way you don't have to kick the crap out of your rim whenever you get it off next time. Also, if it looks like that, not much you can do, but you can put some white lithium grease on it, preferably not from Worth anymore because their shit is just ridiculously expensive. Hopefully they've come down in price. I gotta give them a shout. White lithium grease, just any sort of lubricant, really helps with the CV nut not turning into something that is not a 32 mil and something you'll probably never be able to get off. On the surface of the hub, make sure it's not so thick that a bristle can be hiding in there and cause an uneven surface. I'm going to show you a bonus tip here. If you have a bolt that is hard to come out whenever you're taking your rotors on and off, it is because, again, the same thing has happened where someone has been lazy. What you want to do is get the appropriate drill bit size that is slightly smaller than the hole, and then you want to ream it out. I don't know what that size is, and in the background you're hearing me try to put that size into the bottom hole. I think I've got it now. Yes, I have. In this case, it is a 31/64 bit that we will use. We're gonna just drill that guy out there. That way your bolts go in and out nicely, and then we're gonna lather it up with some wonderful anti-seize or grease, whatever. We just want it to not be stuck in there. That's all you need to do. Just a little bit of work goes a long goddamn way. Now the next time I go to do these brakes, I will not spend a couple of hours trying to get this stupid thing off the car, because sometimes these things can seize in there because of the rust, and then, well, that can be lights out, because if you worked on Subarus in the past, that top bolt is not in the best of place unless you have the specialty tool. Real pain in the ass to get out, especially if it's seized. Grab your rotor, slide it on. A little bit of anti-seize on the back there. Let's go ahead and get our bracket now. We're gonna tap our bolts, get rid of all that crud, and then we'll throw it on with some brand new anti-seize. Grab your wonderfully nice new anti-seize bolts and your caliper bracket, slide it into place. And then go ahead, thread it up by hand. It's a bit tricky because the Subaru rotor likes to lean. Make sure you are holding your pads in place, otherwise they will fall out. And yeah, it sucks because you don't want any shit on your pad, or, well, any of the grease surfaces that you have applied grease to. Slide this guy in. Now, this is not a proper, well, it's got most of the steps of a proper brake video as to how I would usually do it, but there are a few steps that are missing. Yeah, so this was basically just a video to help talk you through exactly what problems you might be running into, and yeah, so far it's turned into something that's a lot longer than I thought it would be. Anyhow, hopefully you guys find the video entertaining as well as informative. At the very least, if it's not informative, then you're either blind or deaf, and don't leave a stupid comment. So, yeah. But I know that the majority of people who watch my videos don't really care about how I pronounce, you know, Hyundai or Hyundai. Like, cares? They're still a shitbox regardless. Now, whenever sliding the caliper over, you want to make sure that it's stood up as possible, meaning that it is in its upright position, and then slide the caliper over. Make sure, because these guys aren't retracted all the way, that you are clear and do not gouge or damage this rubber. Slide it into place. And now you can run your bolts up. I'm gonna go spend probably an eternity now on a wonderful shit program, Shopkey, find out our wonderful torque specs, and I shall be back to give them to you and torque this wonderful caliper into place for hopefully the foreseeable future. Okay, well, I should have adjusted, but I'm rushing through the video right now, and well, this bolt's exactly the same as the top, so you get the picture. Grab your torque wrench and set it to 59 foot-pounds or 80 newton meters for your caliper bracket. For your caliper to the bracket or guide pins, set it to 20 foot-pounds or 27 newton meters. All right, we are good to go. Of course, put your wheel on the car. Always thread your bolts up by hand. You never, ever want to thread them up with any sort of power device, because if you cross-thread them, you will be sitting in the corner with tears in your eyes. Although it's not the hardest thing to replace a stud on a Subaru, still something that nobody wants to do just because you screwed up. Set your torque wrench to 89 foot-pounds or 120 newton meters. We are good to go. Now, the absolute most important step that you will absolutely regret if you miss is to pump your brakes. Of course, we were messing around with them So get in the car, make sure you pump the pedal until it is firm under your foot. Do not drive the car without pumping the pedal because you won't have brakes, and that's a scary experience. With all that out of the way, hopefully you found the video entertaining as well as informative. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss any of my new videos. And as always, thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one. Welcome back to the sweatshop. In today's video, we're going to be working on this 2014... The fuck? I was going to call it an Impreza. What we're doing in today's video is we're basically going to be running through a diagnosis of a seized caliper. That didn't make any fucking sense, and I got a laundry mat coming out of my fucking overalls. Wonderful. Anyhow, let's start that over again. And then showing you how to fix it and, well, deal with whatever situation, and why it is very important to fix these things when you're doing your brakes. And that didn't make any fucking sense. Stupid. This one's gonna be, it's supposed to be a short video, and every time I'm supposed to do a short video, I fucking ramble on about bullshit, you know? Okay, 1, 2, 3. I didn't have anything to say there. Fuck. But it is evident, not really through the rotor condition on the face of the motor, the caliper bracket, there's that fucking compressor cocksucker, that it had a bad beal bearing. Stupid. The most common issue for a brake system on a Subaru to keep it engaged. What the fuck? Fuck did I put it? On the hoist. Don't hit the camera. But in light of the quality of these rotors, well, not quality, and I can't get my hands on one that is of the same, what the fuck would I say? Jimmy. You should tell them it's exactly how you play with a nipple. Motherfucker. That is the sounds like someone's fucking dragging a dead body out there, but it's a jack. Oh, fuck, man. Shit irritates the fuck out of me. Come back my socket, you rusty pile of shit. There we go. Now, the very most important step is to get this fucking camera lined up so it doesn't look like dog shit when I'm fucking editing. Okay, ready. With all that out of the way, hopefully you found the video informative as well as... What's that other fucking word? Fuck. Subscribe button. Oh, fuck. If you're wondering why I'm speaking so fast, because I'm running out of goddamn time and I'm taking all kinds of time from the customer, and yeah, it's not sped up. I'm just rambling quick as I can. Bye-bye. Bearing.